This is the story of a person who survived for 438 days in the world's largest and most unforgiving ocean, the Pacific Ocean. He fought a battle between life and death, set a world record, and returned alive after 14 months. But something happened when he came back that made him consider ending his own life. We'll discover the full story in this video. When people hear the name Pacific Ocean, they start sweating with fear. You see, 71% of the Earth's surface is covered in water, divided into 4 oceans: the Atlantic, Pacific, Indian, and Arctic. The Pacific Ocean is the largest of them all. It's so big that it could almost swallow the Earth's land area, which is 165 million square kilometers by itself, covering an area of 148 million square kilometers. This ocean has only a few islands, which are very small, and some of them have never even been visited by humans. Now, if by mistake, someone gets lost in the Pacific Ocean, finding them is almost impossible. The name of the person who survived for 14 months in the Pacific Ocean was Jose Salvador Alvarenga. He had a small boat, only 7 feet long, so small that he couldn't even lie down properly in it. Yet, he lived on that boat for over a year, enduring the harshness of the ocean and setting a world record that no one has broken to this day. Jose was simply unlucky to find himself trapped in this terrible situation. This story takes place in 2012. Jose was a 36-year-old experienced fisherman living in a village called Costa Azul in Mexico. On November 17, 2012, Jose and his companions set out for a routine fishing trip in their small 7-foot boat. They couldn't venture too far because their boat was small, equipped with just one engine and a small fridge for storing a few fish. They planned to return within 30 hours. They set off, and after traveling 120 kilometers from the coast of Mexico, they were busy casting their nets into the ocean when suddenly a dangerous storm arrived. In a hurry, they left their nets behind and sped their boat for 6 continuous hours, trying to outrun the storm. They were only 20 kilometers from the shore when their boat's engine broke down. They could see the shore and even their village, but their situation took a turn for the worse. They had a radio and managed to send their location to their boss, waiting for a response. But then, bad luck struck again. The radio's battery died. On one side, they could see the shore, and on the other, the approaching storm, which seemed so fierce it felt like it would swallow them alive. The strong winds from the storm were so powerful that they started pushing their boat further away from the shore. In no time, the shore disappeared from sight, and the fierce waves began pulling them in the opposite direction. Their boss sent out a search party to find them, but with each passing moment, Jose's boat drifted farther and farther away. The storm was so intense that they couldn't see anything, or even figure out where they were or which direction the shore was. Incredibly, within just 5 days, their boat had drifted 450 kilometers away from the shore. Because their boat was small, it made finding them even more difficult. They didn't have a flare gun or anything to start a fire to signal for help. The two of them looked at each other, realizing that surviving was becoming more and more difficult. 2 days earlier, they had run out of food. They didn't have any fishing equipment since they had left their nets behind during the storm. Both of them were starving when suddenly, a bird landed on their boat. They glanced at each other and immediately tried to catch the bird, but they couldn't. They knew another bird might come, so they planned carefully, and after some time, another bird appeared. This time, they succeeded in catching it and managed to stave off their hunger by eating birds that landed on their boat. Drinking seawater can be deadly, so they began collecting rainwater in plastic bottles floating in the sea and drank it whenever it rained. When it didn't rain, they quenched their thirst by drinking the blood of fish and turtles whenever they managed to catch them. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, and the mental torment they were going through was unimaginable. Eventually, Jose's companion could no longer bear the torture and took his own life after 4 months. Now, Jose was completely alone, with no one to talk to, surrounded by the vast, silent ocean. If you look at a map, it seems that Jose was now somewhere in a part of the Pacific Ocean that is considered one of the quietest places on Earth, so remote that even cargo ships rarely pass through. It had been more than 6 months since Jose had left the shores of Mexico, and during this time, he had lost his companion. This loss left him feeling deeply frustrated. One day, Jose spotted a cargo ship in the distance. This was the first ship he had seen in the past 6 months. The sight of it rekindled his hope of survival. He desperately signaled towards the cargo ship in every way he could. But unfortunately, the ship didn't see his tiny boat and sailed away. Watching this, Jose's hope of staying alive was dashed once again. Just imagine how it must feel to be fighting for your life every single day in the middle of the ocean, and then finally seeing a chance for rescue, only for it to slip away. After 11 months, Jose had drifted 8,000 kilometers in his small boat. His clothes were torn, and he had nothing left but an undershirt to protect himself from the sun. Finally, his luck began to change. On January 30th, 2014, a full 14 months after his ordeal began, Jose noticed coconuts floating in the water around him. He knew that coconuts only float like that when they fall from trees, which meant land was nearby. Soon after, he actually saw an island. Fearing he might miss it, Jose jumped into the water and swam towards the island. For the first time in 14 months, he felt solid ground beneath his feet. On the island, Jose spotted a small beach house with a local person inside. This was the first human contact Jose had made in 438 days. The island was a remote part of the Marshall Islands, known as Ibn Atoll, and it was 11,000 kilometers away from where Jose had originally started. It was sheer luck that Jose reached this island because if he had missed it, the next possible stop would have been the Philippines, which was another 5,000 kilometers away. From there, Jose was eventually sent back home, but his troubles were far from over. Upon returning, Jose published a book titled 438 Days. But instead of peace, he was faced with another problem. He was accused of being responsible for his companion's death, the very companion who, according to Jose, had taken his own life.